Hello everyone, welcome to this recorded session for API Days. Today's session is focused on API design, API debugging and testing, and also mocking. And in addition, we will address a critical aspect of the API building phase: security, compliance, and storage. My name is Pierre-Alexandre Loriot. I'm solution engineer for Kong in France. And before we dive in, let's align on an essential concept, the API lifecycle. The life cycle is divided into three key phases. The build phase, this is where you all begins actually, including API design, debugging, testing, mocking, and collaboration. There's also the governance phase. This phase focuses on policy management, versioning, discoverability, documentation, and developer feedback. And the run phase, the final steps. This is where API are exposed to consumers with security compliance. And for this session, we will focus on the build phase and explore how Kong Insomnia can efficiently support you in building API. Let's get started. So first of all, API first to start. API design is crucial because a well-designed API ensures that API are intuitive, consistent, and user-friendly. And the consequences, integration and adoption is easier for developers. So with Kong Insomnia, you can easily create, develop, and refine your API specification within an intuitive interface. That's what you can see on this screenshot. In the middle of the screen, you can see the design part of your API specification, and you get benefits of features like real-time linting to identify and resolve issues as you work. So you have default linting embedded, powered by Spectral, and it can ensure in real time that you are not making mistake in your code and you can resolve issue as you work. And there is also custom linting. It's tailor linting rule, your own custom listing rule, just to ensure that you applied your internal company standard when you're writing your code. And you also have a live rendering specification on the right pane of the screen. You can visualize in real time what's the OS rendering of your specification. And on the left space of your screen, on the left pane, you can parse your specification. You have a navigation browser, and you can browse into your path, your server. So it's easy to navigate into your specification. So very easy. Very simple to design, to write, to code, to import API specification with Insomnia. Now, once you have designed your APIs, you can debug and test it. So basically, you can import or create collection from scratch, and you can support multiple protocols with Insomnia. If you want to test and debug REST API or legacy SOAP API or modern GraphQL, gRPC, async API, it's possible. We will support all the standard in terms of APIs. And with testing capabilities, you can manage the execution of your code. You can call one time your API, you can send it after delay, you can repeat with intervals, and you can also generate your code in your preferred language to execute your code. And when you define your request, you can see the result on the right side of the screen, and you can do unitary testing, but you can also define test because it makes sense to define the expected response code, the expected result of your test. So you can define test and also define suite test and execute with collection render. I will comment on it later, a series of tests to validate a scenario. And when it comes to API testing, prescript and postscript, like after response script, bring advanced flexibility and efficiency to test API. Typically, if you want to have repetitive tasks, you can code this task in JavaScript, and you can also handle complex API scenario. As an example, if you want to simulate the journey of a user, typically on an e-commerce website, you will execute first an API to get the token. Then you will execute a request to browse the catalog, add product into your cart. Then you can validate the cart, do the checkout, the payment. So this is a defined scenario. And you can code with pre-request and after response script to get the value from a request, reuse it in the next request, and so on, to have complex scenario and to test it. That's very powerful capabilities. Basically, you can also rely on collection runner. That's a new feature that has been released on Insomnia last summer. And with collection runner, you can efficiently drag and drop your collection test, your collection request, and select which one you want to execute. You change also the order of the execution of this request, basically with drag and drops in the UI, and then you can execute your test, and you can see the result, which requests were successfully passed or failed, and then you can debug, test, validate your scenarios on your APIs. We are doing everything through the UI on this example, but you have to be aware that everything can be automated with Insomnia command line, CLI. You can execute all your tests, your collection runner, and so on through CI/CD pipeline as an example to ensure the quality of your API before exposing them on production environment or target environment. You can do this test without environment variables. With Insomnia, you can clearly organize your environment variable with different categories. Typically, you have global environment variable. It can be used across multiple collections, for example, and for consistency between this collection. You can rely on folder environment to organize variable for more specific use cases. And you also have sub-environment or based environment variable with lower priority, which more specific value. And you can create as many environment variable you want. And you can for sure leverage them into prescript and postscript to reuse it during your scenarios. And something is really important, the security. In this environment variable, you might have sensitive data. You might have also a production or URL, or you can have also credential like client ID, client secret, token, and so on. And this sensitive data, you want to avoid them to go away from your computer. You want to avoid them to be synchronized on a Git or even worse on a SaaS server. And good news with Insomnia, you can select if your environment variable can be shared or private. If it's selected as private, everything remains locally. It can be stored also in a local file. It can be stored in a secret, in a vault, or everything remain local, and there is any risk that this variable can be synchronized outside of your computer and outside the company. And if you tag your environment variable as shared, potentially, if you explicitly say, I want to synchronize this environment variable on my enterprise Git, it's possible. Since we're talking about environment variable, typically it can be used to execute your request. And when you're executing your request, you can define some parameter as static value. You can use variables to populate this parameter used into your request, but potentially you want to use real values. When you're executing a request, you probably want to add a city, a location, an ID, a fake number, a fake email to make your test more relevant. And good news, with Kong Insomnia, you can use Faker. Faker, it's more than 100 of values that can be randomized. If in a parameter, for example, city, name, phone, you can select and say, I want to use random phone number, I want to use random city, random value, random URL, random path, and so on. And then when you execute your request, it will provide random value to your backend. So very cool features only with Kong Insomnia. And that's a good transition to talk about API mocking when it comes to simulating APIs. When you're designing API, when you support an API first strategy into your company, maybe your API are not developed yet, or maybe it's still unstable. And you don't want to block other developer because your API is not ready yet. Good news, you can rely on mocking. So Kong provide on its gateway side a mock plugin. So the mock plugin can simulate, based on an OpenAPI specification, the response to the consumer. If you do not have Kong Gateway, you can also use Insomnia mock server to do the mocking. How it works? Two options. You can rely on a SaaS mocking server, so you have nothing to do. It's Insomnia that provide SaaS URL with Insomnia domain, and you just have to add the path at the end of this URL. It's a public SaaS URL, and you can, behind each path, define scenarios of value of response to mock an API. And also, if you want to keep everything local, Insomnia also provide a mock server that can be running locally on your computer, on a server, with a Docker image. And this mock server can simulate also mock APIs based on scenarios to simulate an APIs. So mocking is fully supported with Kong Insomnia, and it can be SaaS or self-hosted for more security and compliance if required. We have ended this first part about API designing, testing, debugging, and mocking with Insomnia. Now I will focus on an important topic, storage options. Why? Because you probably want to have everything local, you want to avoid SaaS synchronization. With Insomnia, by default, you can choose two options, secure cloud or local vault. What does it mean concretely? As a developer, if I install Insomnia on my computer, I can define for each project if I want to keep everything local. So it means that nothing is synchronized in an Insomnia cloud. Everything remains local and only local on my computer. And if you select Secure Cloud, you can get benefits of Insomnia Cloud for collaboration task. So if you decide, you can share synchronize all your collection, all your OpenAPI specification in a secure cloud that is certified SOC 2 Type 2, and you can see live who's working, who's collaborating, who's changing your collection, adding some tests, requests, and so on. So two options, work collaboratively with Insomnia Cloud or working locally. And on both cases, if you have an enterprise subscription, you can rely on Git synchronization, Git, GitHub, GitLab, and so on. How it works concretely, as an administrator, the administrator of Insomnia in an enterprise, in a company, can define if Insomnia's developer, user, and user of Insomnia can only rely on cloud folders, project, local folders, or both as he preferred. And if he select, in my company, developer can only use Insomnia locally, everything stays local on computer. There is no SaaS synchronization. And on top of that, you can enable with an enterprise subscription the Git synchronization. Here on the screenshot, as you can see, I've defined in a box, in a pop-up box, my Git user and the Git path to synchronize my work on a Git repo. This Git repo can be SaaS or local. And once this repo settings is set up, you can access to all the collaborative capabilities of Git. I can branch, commit, pull, push, access to history, and so on, and manage, synchronize all my collection and specification on my Git. And again, if environment variable, for example, are defined as private, no sensitive data can be synchronized with Git, even if this Git is self-hosted in the company network. So that's an important thing. With Insomnia, everything can stay local, and you can enable Git synchronization, and this Git can be also used locally into your network. Not least regarding the import collaborative work, you can also import existing collection, because you probably or you might have existing collection that have been developed, shared with your peer or on your computer. Good news, you can import multiple formats into Insomnia. So you can import your Swagger, your WSDL, your request, your OpenAPI specification, even Postman connection can be imported, just a drag and drop, an import of your collection into Kong, and Kong will automatically do the conversion if you have proscript with a pm.function. This function will be converted automatically in JavaScript with the equivalence in insomnia.function. So you have nothing to do. The migration is seamless if you want to use Insomnia. And again, we support all the industry standard protocol such as SOAP, GraphQL, gRPC, async event, SSE, WebSocket, and so on. So migration are really easy to move to Insomnia. When it comes to other authentication, that's an important point. When you download Insomnia from insomnia.rest, you install Insomnia. You have multiple options to log in. First, you might avoid login and use local scratchpad. So everything start and run locally on your computer. You don't need to have an account. Or you can sign up to create your account with your email. Or you can rely on social login. And if you have the enterprise subscription, you can rely on single sign-on to have enterprise login. It's almost the end of this session, so I just want to share with you some takeaway regarding this session. The first one is let's getting started. Download Insomnia, as I mentioned, on insomnia.rest. You can install it locally on your computer. Just take a few seconds to download it and install it. It's free. It's open source. It's one of the most adopted tool to design and test and mock API. You have collaboration capabilities out of the box and also Git collaboration capabilities with subscription. You can design, lean, debug your API specification efficiently and then support the API best practices. You can use collection for sure to create, to test all your API, to debug your APIs, to create scenarios, complex scenarios. You can rely on new collection runner capabilities. We have seen that we have environment variables, faker, prescript, postscripts, and even more to have the perfect capabilities to do API testing. You have governance capabilities also with API Ops support. We provide command line tools to automate everything, all your API lifecycle management. Remind also that Insomnia is an extensible solution like the Kong gateway, the open source gateway. We have out-of-the-box plugin, enterprise plugin, open source plugin, and custom plugin capabilities. That's the same with Insomnia. We have plugins to leverage integration with third-party tool, with AA, with LLM, with Vault, and even more, or just to change Insomnia theme colors and so on. And last but not least, don't forget that the migration is effortless, including migration from popular API testing tools. So there's no reason not to use Kong Insomnia. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching this session and see you soon at the next API Days.